Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bowtie Security Guy After Dark. With me today is Dominic Alegrete. Dominic is somebody that I've kind of lurked on for quite a while. He's doing some really cool stuff in cybersecurity that I think all aspiring cybersecurity people should do. He's relatively new to cybersecurity, starting in January 2001, right? Was it, or 2021 was the first, was your first internship, or I don't remember.
Yeah, it was August 2021. Yeah.
August 2021. Awesome. So you've only been in it for a few years, but everything I see that you're doing is stuff that I really tell people they should be doing. You're a content creator. You're really trying to inspire people to get into cybersecurity. And tell us a little bit about your journey and kind of where you started and why cyber.
Yeah. First, just want to say thank you for allowing me to come on here. Second, as far as my journey goes, I'm somebody that's always liked tech. Like I've been around tech since the sixth grade. I remember when I was in sixth grade, I took a coding class at school. So like my interest has always been sparked there. I used to do video editing. So the content creation part, that's why it's come a little bit easier. But as far as like my actual journey goes, it started around 3 years ago, the summer of my senior year. So I was going into my senior year of high school, and my dad had actually introduced me to somebody that would become a mentor of mine. And basically, he kind of told me, like, this is what cybersecurity is, because before I didn't know what it was. I was always thinking just like hacking stuff because of the movies. But he was telling me all the things about cybersecurity. It was interesting me. But the thing that really like got me hooked on it, outside of, I guess you could say, the salary, was the freedom, and how he said that if you take it serious, you can at least buy your freedom back. So that was what got me hooked. And then from there, he took me under his wing. I was doing a lot of stuff for his program, whether that was creating resource lists, creating the curriculum, doing, the whole nine. And then he allowed me to be a part of his first cohort. And from there, I was an intern. That was where I, pretty much learned the cybersecurity fundamentals. And then I also became a lead intern in this program. So I'm 17 years old, balancing school, balancing sports, and this internship. And I'm managing other people, twice my age. So there was people in there that were like 25, even 30. So I feel like I got thrown into like that leadership position like early, and it's helped me a lot, and has made me the person that I am today. And then from there, I kept working and working and working. And then just on a meeting like this, I was actually offered a fully remote IT position at a Fortune 500 before I graduated high school. And the funny part is that they actually had to like hold the job for me because I didn't graduate. I hadn't graduated yet. So I think they offered me in like April or May, and I had to like wait 2 months. And luckily, my boss had held it. And then from there, that Thursday I graduated, did my senior activities, and then that Monday I was starting to work. So pretty much history ever since.
I mean, you're basically the story that people tell you is going to happen when you leave college with a degree in cyber, and
Right.
and you were able to pivot it directly into a career. So I want people listening to know it can happen. It's just relatively rare. What do you think gave you that opportunity? What do you think gave you that leg up? Because I see that you've done a few internships. What is some advice that you give to new people who are trying to get into internships and things like that when the competition is so incredibly fierce?
Yeah, it's at an all-time high. I feel like the job market, it is what it is, but I would say the advice that I wish I had probably been given was really just focus on myself and focus on, the fundamentals, because there's a lot of information and a lot of experience you can gain and you can get without actually having an internship, whether that's through courses, whether that's through, watching YouTube, virtual internships, so, or, hands-on projects. So if I had to give any advice, I would just tell somebody really focus on the fundamentals, find like your niche and what you want to do, and then start building that hands-on experience towards that. And then sooner or later, you'll probably get an internship or something will work out. But I would tell you, just work on yourself as much as you can so you can actually be prepared, because you want to offer value. There's no point of trying to apply to internships and you have nothing to offer. So I would definitely say uh, that's probably my advice. And then also, you probably would have to pursue some type of degree because I know that a lot of internships they require you to like either be pursuing like a bachelor's or something. So those are probably the two things I would say.
Yeah. So, I mean, looking at your page, one of the things I noticed, you started your content like a few years back, right?
Hmm.
What made you just decide to start putting out content? I always talk to people and they're like, "Oh, well, what do I have to share? I'm so new. What would anybody care?" I mean, you're almost at 10,000 followers in a few years. Like, you're proof that people do care and that it does have value, even if you are new. But what made you decide to kind of go into content creation?
Yeah, so it was actually during my internship, and the founder of that program, my mentor, he basically was like, he kept telling everybody in the internship, like, you guys need to start posting, you need to start doing this just to like get your name out, but then to also like show the recruiters and, show the hiring managers that you're different and that, you're trying to, do more with yourself. So from there, I just took it and ran with it. It definitely has been a journey, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of wasted time, a lot of, chat GBT responses, but um, we're here. But I would definitely say the thing that inspired me was that I just love helping people and I just love being able to educate people, especially ones that are in my age bracket on the importance of cybersecurity, but also, the importance of physical health, mental health, and different things like that. And I feel like if you know a skill that's non-disposable, and then you also take your health serious and you'll probably live a pretty successful and long life. So I just try to preach that to my followers and I just try to give them a path and show them and inspire them like, hey, your age doesn't matter as long as you put in the work, you're willing to sacrifice and you're consistent, then I feel like you'll go far.
I think that's the key, that kind of sacrifice aspect, because I mean, you've put in hundreds of hours editing, doing these videos. One of your videos I watch, you're like, hey, this is basically a full-time job. And for a lot of content creators, it totally is. For
Hmm.
me, I take the easy way. I don't edit anything. I'm just like, whatever, it is what it is. But 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 like I'm looking at your stuff. It's super polished. My stuff is just raw and dirty comparison wise. But I love that you mentioned that it takes time, and one of the things that you really focus on is that kind of mental health and physical health, right? That is so
Hmm.
incredibly important in this field in general because the
Definitely.
hours you put in, the time that you put in learning. A lot of people
Hmm.
are like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. I scored this job where it's 40 hours a week. I'm going to work 40 hours and I'm done. Like, cyber doesn't work that way. It's kind of one of those things where you're always putting in time to continue to gain more
Right.
skills, to continue to grow your talents, to continue to just grow in general, right? Like, I looked, you have your Security Plus, you've got some of your Splunk certificates and stuff like that. So like, you're constantly putting in this time learning.
Hmm.
Um, when you go through that, what are some of the things that kind of goes through your head when you're looking at like kind of that next cert to get? Are you focusing on things that pertain to your job, or are you looking for things of where you want to go?
I would say I'm looking for things to where, I want to go. I'm somebody that wants to be more on like that defensive security, cybersecurity analyst type of side. So I always look at what can I, learn next and what can I gain to then show recruiters or hiring managers that like, hey, I've done all that I could and I pretty much would need the job now to, further my experience. So that's how I always look at it. I'm somebody that's always like constantly researching every time I finish a cert. Like I'm not somebody that's trying to like cert chase or anything, but I'm trying to be strategic with the certifications that I get. So I'm definitely always researching, looking up what cert in demand, who's looking for this cert, why should I go after this cert? Is it a technology that's, new and that people are actually gravitating towards? So I would definitely say those are some of the things that I look at when it looks into my cert. But then also, I'm not gonna lie, there is some, doubts, I guess, because just studying for a certification, sometimes you may think, oh, I may not pass, or what if I don't pass? But I always try to be positive with myself. Every day I try to say like, hey, you're gonna pass, you're gonna pass. It's okay, you're gonna do good as long as you keep being consistent. I definitely think that positive mindset throughout the certification studying process is important. So I say those are some of the things that I try to do or that I think about when I'm doing my certification study.
Yeah, I mean, that inner voice, right? I think all of us have it, right? For me, I didn't lose my imposter syndrome probably until I was 40, right? I truly believed I didn't belong and I wasn't good enough. And I think a lot of people's imposter syndrome, specifically within the cyberspace, leads to a lot of the burnout because we continue to take on more tasks. We continue to
Mhm.
do way more than we were hired for because
Right.
we're thankful to be there. We're happy to have a job. It's like,
True.
yes, sir, may I have another? So, I
Right.
mean, d during your internships, have you put in a lot of hours? Do you feel like you've kind of seen some of that cyber aspect where you're putting in a ton of hours extra and you're kind of doing the extra work? Or what are your thoughts on that kind of underachiever mentality where you're looking to kind of prove yourself?
Yeah, I've spent a lot. I feel like I spent a lot of hours. I don't know how many I could count, but definitely hours just studying, playing with different machines, things breaking, having to fix it. So definitely, it's a grind. If I had to probably say how I would feel, or like I guess what I was going through, is definitely it can eat away at you sometimes. I feel like what you were saying on how that imposter syndrome is, I really feel a lot of it can come from social media because a lot of stuff is fabricated sometimes. Like the thing I don't dislike about some parts of the cyber community is that there's some influencers that try to like fluff what it's really like. And then people then get this false reality of what cybersecurity is. And then they think it's so easy, like, oh, all you got to do is get this cert or take my course and you'll get a job. But there's so much more to it. And I feel like researching and having a plan is probably one of the biggest things that'll help you not get burnout and also you believing in yourself when it pertains to like not having that imposter syndrome.
Yeah, well, also just know that every person who is leaving is going into a role new is the worst person for that job. They're the best worst person, but they don't know
Right.
the job. They don't know the market. They
Hmm.
don't know the company. You're always going to have a huge learning curve whenever you go into it. Even if you've done incident response, at one company, doesn't mean incident response is going to be done the exact same way at the next company. And
Right.
I totally agree with you about the fluff, right? There's so much of that. And many of these influencers have programs and things that you can pay for to get a leg up and all this different stuff. So they utilize that to create this false perception. I've had so many mentees and people your age who are, in debt already outside of school for classes and things that they took, and they get them locked into contracts, and there's all kinds of
Yeah.
different scams. It's brutal.
Getting hard inquiries and stuff like this. I know,
Yeah.
like $10,000 boot camps and different things like that. I'm like, that's not fair. They shouldn't have to pay that much. And it sucks. Obviously, hats off to the actual like influencers that help and that have real
Yep.
programs, but the ones that don't definitely, that's not cool to me. But yeah.
Well, agreed. And the hardest thing is to be able to tell the difference as a new person.
Hmm.
The advice I give, if somebody is coming to you and offering you a job as a new person and you haven't done the stuff that you've done, like really put yourself out there, create this social media presence, spend a ton of time networking and meeting with people. Like, I'm sure you go to the conferences and stuff too, right? Like whenever there are anything like B-sides and things that are around you, or do you just do mainly digital like networking?
I do both. I've actually started to travel this year, so I've been able to go out like the country, and I've gone to like a few conferences this year. So definitely been trying to network more. I hopefully plan in 2025 to go to a lot more conferences. So definitely it's something that I see in my, future. But I love conferences. They were scary at first because it's like you got to get out of your shell. But, once I've gone to a few, it's kind of like a routine now.
Oh man, my social anxiety used to spike so hard. A lot of people will watch my content and they'll be like, "Oh man, that guy's such an extrovert." Oh hell no! Like I'm a complete, I'm a complete introvert.
I'm the same way. It's like an antisocial social butterfly. It's like I'm gonna be quiet. Like if you don't speak to me, I'm probably not gonna speak to you. But
Well,
you know, if
yeah,
you speak to me, I'm a I'm gonna be social. So I feel like it's how
Yeah.
it is sometimes.
Well, we kind of have to force ourselves, right? I think a
Right.
lot of times I live by the motto of embrace the uncomfortable.
Hmm.
So I have put myself in front of crowds of thousands of people. I have done all these, if you're talking 10 years ago, when I was your age, a perfect example, I couldn't get in front of a crowd of two people without a complete panic attack and absolutely freaking out. Because my social anxiety was so bad. I had to really kind of fight those inner demons and be like, look, nobody's out to get me. Nobody's
Yeah.
judging me. That's all in my head. Like, I need to just go and have a good time. I always tell people, like, even now as an adult, like, I
Hmm.
tell people, I'm like, hey, I'm going to tell you I want to hang out, but I'm probably going to cancel last minute because I wanted, but if you get
Yeah.
me to go, I'm going to have a good time. It's nothing personal.
Right.
It's just,
It's
I'm
just
just
sometimes I like to be by myself. That's all.
Yeah, I like sitting and reading a book besides going somewhere and chatting with people.
Right.
But I'm right there with you, and I think it's funny because I think a lot of influencers are that way too. We're complete introverts who just basically leaned into the extrovert and
Hmm.
kind of force ourselves into it. I think some of your
Right.
content and some of the stuff you do is really kind of touched on that mental health and that aspect of it too, because I think that's such a big core thing. One of the things that I've seen with a lot of new people is like they come out of college and they just kind of expect something to happen.
Hmm.
And I feel like we as a cybersecurity community have created this kind of reality where it's like, oh, you got your college degree? Here's a job, Dominic. Congratulations.
Right.
Like it's such a rarity. I've mentored 300 plus people, lots of them young people like you, and like less than 1% of them actually are able to score an internship or even get a job. And you've kind of
Mhm.
done both. What has been your experience overall from what you thought you knew versus what it's really like kind of being in the driver's seat?
Yeah, I thought just like the other students, I thought it was gonna be, easy. I thought, I was gonna do my one internship and be in there, but definitely learn the hard way. I feel like there's just a lot more to cybersecurity than a lot of people, think. So I feel like it's more so about making sure you do your research and that you really understand what it is that you need to learn, whether that's from the fundamentals, understanding operating systems and networking to like your actual niche and understanding like what the role you're trying to do does. So it definitely was a rude awakening. I can even say this year was a rude awakening too, because there was, some interviews that I was on that I did good, and then there was some where I didn't do so good, but it was more so like I just didn't know or like I didn't even think that was part of the job. So definitely just, finding out new things and it's really kind of like trial and error at a certain point because it's like, hey, you got to try this, see if it works. If it doesn't, try something different. And then, also leaning on your network and leaning on if you're, lucky to have mentors to just, pick their brain and kind of see like, hey, I know you were my age at one point. You may not have started in cyber at my age, but, what were you doing earlier in your career? And I feel like always getting that advice and, being able to just actually go out and do it. That's what I feel, has helped me so far. And definitely that sacrifice part as well. There's a lot of stuff I had to, give up to, get to the position that I'm at. And, I don't really regret any of those things. But yeah, I would definitely have to say those things.
I always say if you're happy where you are now, all of the failures and mistakes were worth it, right? Because they're just learning
Right.
opportunities. That first attempt in learning, is what I really think of failure. That's what I teach on my teams too, is like you're gonna mess up. You're gonna make mistakes. I will tell you when I first started going for these executive roles, because I was like, oh wait, I'm talented enough now. I could go for executive jobs. I didn't even think about it. My recruiters are like, why are you going for senior jobs? Why aren't you going for director? And I was like, I don't know. I don't really care about titles. They're like, no, this is a good fit for you. And I remember the first time they were like, hey, how do you do budgets? And I was like, I don't know, spreadsheets. And like, I just bombed that interview so hard. But you learn from that, right? You're like a
Right.
comedian. You're delivering your line and you're like, oof,
Mhm.
that one I saw, that one did not hit the mark. And then you go
Yeah, it's
back,
like,
you
how
try
did
to,
I not know that? It was like
right.
I was like, it's like you forget. It's like I got on one time I got asked like, what is Active Directory? And like I've used it 1,000 times, but I just like forgot. And I was like, oh, it's just this system. Da, 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 da. And they were looking at me funny. I'm like, oh man, let me just study the definition. So next time I'll be prepared.
Yeah, well, it's funny because like the stuff that you'll forget in the heat of the interview. I always tell people to
Mhm.
have what I call parachute notes, which are like notes around your monitor because a lot of these are virtual. Like the core things that have written down. So if you start to panic, because those nerves will get the best of you, take a moment to take a look at your note and go, oh, okay, that's what Active Directory is, and that way you can kind of breathe. It's not I know people are like, oh, well, that's cheating. It's not. You already know the knowledge. You already have the information. You just sometimes people panic and you get uncomfortable.
Right.
And,
Hmm.
for me, I have autism and ADHD. So, like, my nerves get to me sometimes. And sometimes I just get so far into my head, I can't even function.
Right.
So it's really important to have those coping mechanisms in place to kind of help you through it. But I think that's great because that's one example that I see a lot when I'm interviewing people is that especially new people or when I'm hiring for more junior roles, they don't understand the basics of computers. They know all of this great stuff, and I'm like, all right, cool. How would you solve this? And they're like, well, I would do this, this, and this. And I was like, awesome. Why don't you check to see if it's on first? Why don't you just run a ping and validate the host is online?
Right. Or do
And
you know what the
yeah,
service is towards this operating system? It's like definitely something that's new. Hmm.
yeah, and it's those basic skills I think that are not taught in school. They focus so heavily on what you need to pass the cert and what you need to kind of pass the class, so to speak. So if you're doing pen testing or if you're doing advanced network security, like all the other stuff that are core components of that are just completely gone. And like you said, when you get into an actual role, it's incredibly overwhelming, right? Like, because you feel like you literally know nothing.
Right.
And that's very much how I felt when I got my first security gig at Disney. I
Hmm.
couldn't even express how much I didn't know on paper. I was blown away that there was now an operating system called Kali Linux that basically let anyone hack. I was just floored by it. I was like, hang
Me
on.
too.
I was
I
like,
know.
this is what we're up against? Anybody can do this?
I know. I was like, why? I'm trying to work the command line. I'm like, why is it not hacking or doing anything? And I'm like, oh, you have to put commands in. That was the same way I felt at my IT position because I had no prior IT experience, and I'm like, dude, this is crazy. Like I've always worked on like Mac, so like I had to transfer to Windows, so like it was a whole learning process. But it took the time to actually learn, and luckily I was able to start grasping those things. But definitely, I've felt that before.
I think that's the core thing that so many people miss is they don't take that beat to fill in that gap of knowledge, right? They're really dependent on the internet. They're really dependent on searchability, and those are great things. And ChatGPT makes things absolutely lovely. I use it all the time for getting started on things, but you can't depend on it because you've got to build those skill sets yourself. So, did you build like a home lab, or how did you kind of start figuring out the Windows stuffs and the gaps that you needed? What did you start doing? Like, I'm a big fan of YouTube University. I'm a graduate
Yeah.
of such.
Yeah.
But what are some of the tools that you use to kind of help grow your skills outside of what your job was teaching you?
Yeah, I feel like it was a mindset thing. So after work, I would just, practice. I would just, I was doing like little stuff, like just clicking buttons and like moving the browser and, going into Outlook and just looking at what I'm looking at just so then I at least know like the interface. But outside of that, definitely have built, a few home labs when it pertains to learning specific tools like Splunk. But I definitely think it's like a mindset type of thing where it's like you have to want to learn. And I feel like if you want to learn, then you'll be probably successful in this industry. But those are probably some of the things that I did when it pertains to actually, learning the skills and, building the home labs. And, also, you don't always have to necessarily build a home lab. It helps. I feel like when you're getting, into the experience of like hands-on stuff, then yes. But YouTube University, courses, Udemy University, that that's all I'm on. But I'll definitely say just using your various resources. I say that's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, when I was unemployed, I signed up for the free trial of like Udemy, a couple other places, and I knocked out like 9 or 10 certs just because I was doing nothing else, right? So I mean, if you have the time and you're looking to go into any sort of field, even if they're not like sans certs, right? Because sans certs are expensive, man. I grew up a poor kid. I couldn't afford a sans cert. That's like a quarter of my family's income, right?
Right.
Like dropping 7 or 10 grand on a certificate just isn't feasible, but those are the only ones that are truly recognized. But I will tell everyone listening, as a hiring manager, like we see those certs that you're putting in time for. We see the Google certified hacker. We see the ISC squared, cyber professional certificates. That shows that you're putting an effort in your own free time to learn and grow your skills, especially for an entry level role. And things like sharing your code and your repos as part of your resume, those are also things we absolutely love as hiring managers to see. But your LinkedIn too is something where it's really, really important that your LinkedIn is on
Mhm.
point and that, you have that first impression on lock. Because a lot of people think that first impression is that conversation you're having with someone. It's just
Right.
not anymore. It's just not. Have
Hmm.
you seen, because of your social stuff, have you seen people kind of come to you and offer you opportunities or say, hey, I think you should apply, or, do you think that's gotten you more interviews because you're so out there and you kind of put yourself out there so often?
Definitely. Yeah, I would say just having that presence, I'll get DMs here and there like, hey, I think you're a good fit. Or, it'll be somebody that I've networked with and, I haven't spoken to them in a while and they don't even hire for that company, but they'll be like, hey, I was thinking of you. I think, with your experience, go ahead and apply. Pretty much all my interviews have probably came through LinkedIn and like a recruiter DMing me and saying like, hey, I think you would be a good fit. So I definitely say putting that groundwork in and making sure that your LinkedIn profile is very, optimized, and then also slowly but gradually posting content and sharing your experiences and what you actually do. And it may not seem like it's working in the in the beginning because you're just starting. I could remember where I was getting one post views and nobody was hitting my inbox, but as you gradually put consistency out there, people see that and they see how how much work you're putting in, and it just takes pretty much you know a lot of time, and I would have to also say probably God's timing as well. So I would say that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, sometimes it's just perfect timing, sometimes it's chance. It's really just, you never know where that next opportunity is going to come to. You never know where that next lead is going to come from. I had people who reached out to me because they saw a comment I made on a post. I've had people reach out to me because they read my bio and they thought it was cool that I put Vanilla Ice quotes in it, right? Like you never know where that next opportunity is going to come, so you need to always be on. The way I tell people is like, every time you share content, every time you make a post, make sure that it is working towards your goals. So if your goal is to become a cyber professional and you respond to a post, you need to have your own opinion on it. You need to have your own 2 cents on it. And you really need to be able to give that opinion clear and definitively. That way, when people read it, they go, hey, that guy knows what he's talking about, or that girl knows what they're talking about. Because you see so many people who just keep reposting things. That is not how you grow. That's not how you show your skills. What you get from putting time into LinkedIn and sharing content is people get to know who you are. They get to know what you're about, and they don't even need to have a conversation with you to do so. I always say that I put out content because it's like little me's giving advice all the time. I'm
Hmm.
sleeping, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, somebody's watching that video and they're being inspired by it. And I watched
Yeah.
a bunch of your videos, and I love how you do them in that small increments. Are you putting them on TikTok too? Is that they're kind of perfect for TikTok? I,
Yeah, I try to put them on LinkedIn, TikTok, and Instagram. Hmm.
Yeah, no, no, I love it, right? And I've considered doing that too, but I'm just pure lazy. I mean, that's really all it comes down
Right. Right.
to. I'm just like, oh God, I hated embracing social media because I was a
Hmm.
professional social engineer and an ethical hacker for many years, and I know how many times I've used LinkedIn to gain access to people and to trick people into thinking I was someone I wasn't. But when I started to apply for jobs, my recruiters made it very clear if you don't have a LinkedIn, you are simply, and it doesn't look tight, you're probably not even going to get an opportunity because they want that
Right.
package to be able to
Hmm.
hand to a customer, right? So, for instance, they want to be like, hey, this kid is green. He's only put in a few years, but look how much he's given back to the community. Here's his LinkedIn, here's his resume. You become a total package at that point, right? So, like, they know who Dominic is before they even have a conversation with you. And I think that's a really important thing. What's one thing that I like you said, I think a good point too that you made is like that struggle of when you first start putting out content and like nobody's looking at it. That is
Hmm.
a hard time. You're like,
Yeah.
man, I spent a lot of time doing this and
Hmm.
nobody cares. And you put in a lot of time. You mentioned your sister helps you record videos and stuff, and I absolutely
Hmm.
love that you made it like a whole family thing. I saw that you were an ambassador too. Like, how did that happen? For one of the conferences? Like, did they reach out to you or did you reach out to them?
Yeah, they had actually reached out to me. And what's funny is it was like a few weeks back or a few months back, and my dad, like, I always try to comment on people's stuff because I feel like that's how you grow. And when you do that, LinkedIn and other platforms show that you're trying to you're contributing and you're not just trying to be like a taker. So, I've always tried to comment, but I was usually only commenting on like LinkedIn. So, my dad was like suggesting like, hey, start just commenting on Instagram and Twitter and all this other stuff. And that specific company, their founder, she has her platform that's really big. And I'm pretty much was just commenting on her stuff every day. But like I'm leaving like good comments. Like if you are gonna comment on people's pages, yes, there's times where you can put congratulations or good stuff, but you want to be detailed and actually show what you know what you're doing, but then also ask questions because, they're in that position for a reason. So, I kept doing that and kept doing that. And they actually had hit me up saying, hey, we would like you to be an ambassador for our tech conference because I guess it's their first one that they're doing. And then from there, I had to wait a few weeks, and then um, they put us through like a little ambassador like program thing, and then I was able to get selected. And it was a beautiful opportunity, and I'm thankful for it. I can't wait to go to the conference in December, but definitely it's a testimony to how hard I've worked, but how much I'm trying to contribute. And I feel like when you're genuinely putting good stuff out there and you're doing it for the right reasons and you're commenting because you actually want to see people win, then it's going to come full circle. It may not come at the time that you want it to come, but it'll come sooner or later.
Yeah, I mean, you put good out there, good comes back. I'm a firm believer of that, right? I realized very quickly that the market just wasn't what it was, and I just started trying to help people. And it also helped me, right? Mentoring all these people, meeting with all these people really helped my mindset because I was in a serious depressive state after getting laid off. I hadn't had a I hadn't been unemployed for 20 since I was your age, basically. I didn't even know what to do.
Right.
I went right back to that time where I was homeless, I was living in a car, and like my mindset, even though I wasn't there and from a financial perspective, I wasn't there from anything, mentally, I went right back to that place where I was at my lowest. And really, social media helped me through that. How do you balance all the time you put into social and that getting addicted? I know for me, I became very addicted to social media doom scrolling and stuff like that, where it took me almost a year. Only recently have I broken my social media addiction. How do you balance that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like you need to set boundaries. Definitely, that's a big thing. You have to, want to not be on social media all the time. And, when you are on there, I feel like you have to make it important to figure out what you need to actually get out of it because social media is bad in some aspects, but it can also be good if you're actually scrolling and reading, valuable information, whether that's about the news, your health, whatever it is. I feel like you just have to make that choice and have pretty much a plan when you're, taking social media. But it's definitely a challenge at times. Like, I've had issues in the past where I'm just scrolling and then I realize like, oh, I wasted so much time. But I feel like it's just a mindset. You have to want to like not be on there all the time, but you have to be on there all the time in a sense, right? But I also, do little things like I'll put my phone up in the bathroom and then I'll go do my work, or I'll turn my phone off or have no notifications on. Like I don't have any notifications for none of my social media. So like when I see my LinkedIn post hit like 1,000 views, it's like, oh, I'm just finding out because I don't have no notifications. So I'll
Yep.
definitely say the little things you have to, do to, balance that.
Turning off notifications is a huge thing, right? Especially when you start to get to I just hit 5,000 followers and like it's obscene because that ding and that addiction to constantly check those notifications becomes
Mhm.
a real problem. So I want to give you time to plug all of your stuff. So where can people see your stuff at? What are your handles on all the different platforms? And then we'll wrap everything up.
Yeah, as far as LinkedIn and Instagram is pretty much my name, Dominic Alegrete. And then as far as like TikTok and YouTube goes, it's called Dom the Cyber Genius. So it's like capital DOM and then lowercase the and then cyber and then genius is all capitalized. But that's, what I go by. Hopefully, I don't know if I'll rename it, but that was just something creative that I had thought of. But yeah, that those are, my socials and where you
Look,
can,
I,
find me.
I'm a grown ass man who calls myself security guy. I think you're fine. I, I don't think you need to rename anything. Man, it has been an absolute pleasure, brother. I truly appreciate your time. I recommend
Thank you
everyone go
so
check
much.
out your stuff, man. What you're doing is great. What you're doing to give back, what you're doing to help people. This is what you need to do. Dom is a perfect example of all of the work that's required, all of the hours and hundreds of hours that need to be put in to succeed in this career. And if anybody is looking, Dom is looking too. So if you need somebody who's ready to crush it and come into your program as an analyst, he's a great guy. He's been absolutely phenomenal to follow, and please hit him up. Thank you so much for your time today, Dominic.
No problem. Thank you so much.